It's 2023 and it's almost impossible to find a house. Everywhere you look is the most expensive house on the block and it feels like you can't get ahead. Listen to this data. In 1981, the median income was $22,390 and the median house price was of $66,125, meaning that the median home price was about 2.9x of the median salary at that point in time. Now fast forward to current day. The median home price is $416,000. That's 6.2 times more than it was in 1981, but the median salary is only $75,000, which is a little more than 3x since 1981. So something doesn't add up. That means the median home price in today's world is 5.5x the median salary. That nearly doubled from 2.9x in 1981 to 5.5x in 2023. Something is wrong, and how do we fix it? So historically speaking, the average cost of a house is about 5x of annual household income. And in the last 40 years, the only time that went above that mark was during 08. So in other words, the average single family house was 7 times the median income. Obviously that wasn't sustainable. We all know what happened in 08. But now the median home price is $416,000 in 2023, and that's a 26% increase since 2020. The median price in 2020 was $329,000, all the way up to $416,000 in 2023. So let's take a step back and understand where the mortgage origination came from and exactly why it's become such a staple in our economy. So as more Americans made the journey to the US, most initial Americans thought that owning a home was an economic advantage that the wealthy people did. And it wasn't necessarily meant for the masses. But that changed in the 20th century when people like John D. Rockefeller and Henry Ford, who provided better paying jobs at fewer hours for the middle class. So from there on, it started to become a dream for a lot of Americans called the American Dream. And that's why everybody became obsessed with it. And rightfully so. It's awesome owning a house, and I own a house myself. So confidence around the American Dream continued to soar until the late 70s, early 80s when it kind of halted and there was a standstill. The Federal Reserve stepped in because of rampant inflation and increased rates at an all-time high of 18.5% in 1981. So some of you might have parents and some of you might have grandparents that actually experienced this in 1981 and have talked about those rates at those levels. And naturally, people didn't have a desire to pay an 18% premium for a home. So at that time, an $82,000 home with a 20% down payment would cost $1,109 a month. And that's excluding taxes, fees, and insurance. And if those rates were around today, a $322,000 home with a 20% down payment would cost $3,986 a month. But the worst thing about that is the total interest payments over those 30 years would eclipse $1 million at $1.18 million in total. But at a 4% rate, that same home costs about $1,232 a month with a total cost of about $445,000 over 30 years. So obviously there's quite the difference there. So as you can see on my screen, we have the yearly average mortgage rates from 1981 to current day. Obviously back in 1981, we eclipsed 18% at one point in time, all the way to current day where we're about at 7.31% as of September 28th, 2023. But that's the highest level since 2000, and that's an issue. People want to stay put in their home because they locked in a low interest rate and demand is surging past the inventory levels. And in the recent Fed meeting in September, they decided not to move rates up or down. They kept everything put. So the current range is between 5.25% and 5.5%. And as you know, the federal funds rate is the rate financial institutions lend to each other overnight. A Fed rate hike can indirectly impact long-term home loans such as a 30-year fixed mortgage. And the Fed have come out and said that they anticipate maybe one more increase in the rates. Now, there's no guarantee, but that's what they're alluding to end at 5.6% at year end. And many experts expect mortgage rates to remain over 6% through the end of the year. And to fix this problem, I think there's two main things. Number one, inventories for homes for sale need to turn much higher. And two, a rate decrease, but not just a substantial increase, but actually a leveled off, slow, tailored process. And this will prevent anybody from rushing into a home as soon as they drop rates. And many experts say a balanced housing market has about 4 to 6 months of inventory. And our existing inventory is about 3.1 months. It was crazy because 1 year ago, the median sales price was $496,000 for new homes, while the median existing home sales price was around $378,000. So that was a difference of about $118,000. But that gap has shrunk to about $30,000. Similar to the car market, used cars and new cars are getting closer and closer in price. Therefore, a lot of people are upgrading to the that new car because they're not willing to take on the risk with a used car when the new car might only be a couple thousand more. And we're seeing that gap shrink with the housing market as well. But it's crazy because 82% of consumers are putting home buying on pause. And I don't necessarily think that's the best course of action. You have to find a deal that makes sense for you, but as long as you can find that deal, and there are opportunities all over the place, go ahead and take the bite and make sure that you get into the house that you love. But remember, there's starter homes out there. You have to adjust the expectation. What you once had or what was once available is no longer available, and you have to adjust to that. Most Americans have their minds made up that they have this $1 million home, but they only are living on a $100,000 salary. That's just not doable anymore. A typical starter home hit its all-time high at $243,000 in June. So those earning an average household salary of $75,000 a year can afford that plus a little more at $256,000. However, this did only account for about 23% of existing homes, so it's not just easy to go find a starter home. However, there are opportunities out there available. And let me remind everybody, this is not 2008. There's a major shortage in almost every city out there, and supply and demand has to shift in order for prices to come down. So here are a few things I would do to navigate this situation. Number one, every problem has a solution. You're either gonna whine and complain about living in California or New York, or you're gonna find a solution. You have to adjust, you have to conquer, and you have to have an expectation realignment to know that the new world is not the same as the old world. So you're not gonna be able to get what you once had unless you make more money to account for that. Number two is you need a good detailed financial plan. You have to have a balance sheet, a budget, amortization schedules for any debts that you have, a specific roadmap mapping out every little step that you're doing, and you should automate that entire process. If you don't understand how to do that, check the video training in my link in bio and I'll walk you through exactly how to do that. Third is do a 3-month look back analysis of your credit card statements and bank statements. Actually open those, download those, and see exactly what you spent over the last 3 months. That will give you your actual picture versus just this theoretical thing in your head. Cut back on other big expenses like vacations or big cars. This is not the time to be buying those. Whether you like it or not, or you deserve it, or you're trying to manifest it just isn't the right time. We don't know what the market holds, and there could be a rocky market ahead of us, and you need to be prepared. And lastly, there's a lot of remote jobs out there in today's world. You can search for jobs that are remote and actually move across the country to the Midwest or somewhere other than California or New York, where I hear every single day how expensive housing is. I get it, it's expensive, but there are options out there to adjust. And before we leave, I'm gonna give you historical context exactly where rates are in context of the last 40, 50 years. On the screen, you'll see from 1971 to 2023 exactly where rates were. So we are not that historically high. We're pretty much right in the dead center. So I don't personally see extreme adjustments with rates until the end of the year of 2023. In 2024, I still don't see a massive swing either way in which direction. You have to prepare, you have to get ready, and you have to build wealth the right way. So if you have any questions on this particular assessment of the housing market, just go ahead and comment in the video below, and I'll make sure I get back to every single comment. And my next video will come out next Monday.